Are you insane? How could you possibly prefer that to— oh, okay, that makes a lot more sense. So Lego Ninjago Masters of Spinjitzu was a show based on the Lego toy line, lasting from 2011 to— oh, it's still going. Okay. I've caught a few episodes in passing, and for what it obviously is, it's fine. Which is why I was surprised that they would do a theatrical movie for it, especially considering all of the other Lego properties they could and most likely will make movies of in the future, but it's probably because this toy line is one of the more popular that's not based on another property. But the show existed first, so they had to at least pretend to acknowledge it while also completely disregarding it. From what I know, the principal characters here are characters in the show, including that Green Ninja Lloyd is the son of Season 1 and 2 villain Garmadon, and Master Wu is his brother. But in the show, that was a self-contained story with a proper conclusion, meaning this movie is an alternate universe that contains character names and a couple of Easter eggs, but is a completely different story and even with a completely different cast. I mean, I know the show wasn't amazing, but if I was a fan, I think I'd be pissed. But unlike how similar that sounds to a certain other movie that came out recently, this movie actually works. In this story, the city of Ninjago is consistently attacked by supervillain Garmadon so often that it's their weather forecast. And everyone knows that high school student Lloyd is his son and is constantly harassed for it, but no one knows that he and his friends are the color-coded elemental ninjas that protect the city complete with mechas.
Fire toys!
And honestly, the first act is the weakest part because it introduces the film with so many familiar tropes. The bullied high schooler, the superheroes with secret identities, the over-the-top elaborately gadgeted supervillain, and I blame Transformers that I am now conditioned to feel sleepy every time giant robots are attacking a city.
That should not be the conditioned response!
But I really couldn't care less about the mechs. The one-on-one martial arts stuff is pretty good. For, Legos. You can tell that this film is skewed slightly younger, and yeah, some of the dialogue does reflect that, but you can still recognize the style and wit of the other Lego movies, including the self-awareness of their plasticky, made-of-blocks world, because even if they don't say Master Builder, you have to have at least one scene where the characters are building something to remind the kids that they need to go to the toy store later. And while this film isn't quite as good as the other two movies, I will give it that it does look a little better, which has less to do with the fact that natural elements like fire, water, and greenery do actually look natural now instead of also being Legos, though that probably helped. And more about animators being more aware of things like framing, silhouette, and color contrast that just makes everything a little bit easier to look at and distinguish. I wasn't sure what the point was of making a live-action framing device with Jackie Chan, aside from really hammering in that these things are toys, but it does lay the groundwork for one big joke that is actually really funny, but was given away in one of the trailers. Then the second half of the movie is practically a different movie entirely, and it is a big improvement. The story's more interesting, the jokes are funnier, and almost none of it was in the trailers. Character-wise, Garmadon is a very entertaining, very funny villain. He is in the same vein of a lot of self-aware, proud-to-be bad guys in cartoons, but he's still a lot of fun to watch. And Lloyd works well as the emotional center of the story, working through his arc of extreme daddy issues, which sounds familiar. And Master Wu, he is the wise old martial arts teacher played by Jackie Chan. What do you expect? Which, by the way, is the second animated film that's been released this year where he has more lines than in all three Kung Fu Panda movies combined. DreamWorks, get the bang for your buck. These guys utilize the shit out of him. The other ninjas are there and are practically non-entities. They may get one or two lines that say something specific about themselves and have individual powers a la Captain Planet meets Power Rangers, because ever since Naruto, ninjas are basically wizards. But like the crew from Big Hero 6, their role is to be one supporting collective unit for Lloyd's story, and I could not for the life of me tell you any of their names or even how many of them there were. I do know that they got more exaggerated and teenagery. Like, the one thing I remember from the show was that one of the ninjas was a robot, but he didn't really act like a robot, he was just more serious than the others. Whereas here, he's suddenly all beep boop, hello fellow teenagers, how is the weather? Pay no attention to my stutter, the cake is a lie. Also, one of them's a DJ now. You know what? They do their job, they have a few decent lines, other lines that make me want to kill myself, and I've now officially paid more attention to them than the movie did. The movie isn't as consistent legitimately funny as Lego Batman, but you can argue that comedy was really the top priority for that movie, with a secondary emphasis on a story about family. Here the comedy is still pretty frequent and mostly effective, including a segment that tries to deliver the most Wilhelm screams in a 10-second period, but this movie, way more than the other movies, really centers in on that Cats in the Cradle storyline. When it gets to that contractually obligated second to third transition moment of pathos, they go at it hard. They were really trying to deliver something powerful. It wasn't Pixar or anything, but it could have so easily been unintentionally hilarious, but it actually kind of worked. The only thing about it that I have a mild issue with is how ultimately simple and idealistic it resolves the whole son estranged father arc, especially considering the complexities of a child having a parent who's not only absent but also objectively a pretty terrible person, a subject that was somewhat better handled by Guardians Volume 2 or even that one episode of Gravity Falls. Now, is that too much to ask of a Lego movie? I'm just saying, this is also a post-Inside Out world. It wasn't impossible. But I won't object too hard. It was still sweet and touching and tugged at my soul. So while there is a number of things to pick at, the first half drags, and there's a mantra of see things from a different perspective that they beat into the ground, and God, that live-action framing device really is just so dumb. But I still had a casually good time with this. I really liked the second act, I thought it was funny, and I still think the critics are crazy. I do get that this won't connect with some audiences the way the others did, and I could see where it was continuing a lot of elements from the other two movies that, if continued into future movies, might start turning into cliches, which would harken a future of LEGO franchise movies that would probably become more like conveyor belt toy commercials. And that is something to potentially worry about, but maybe not just yet, because so far, every LEGO movie has still been better than anything Illumination has done. Oh, now it's an obvious toy commercial? And Minions is what exactly? Whatever. They're both mid-level movies, which means the percentages are always weird, and the numbers aren't even that different. Who's overreacting? Not me! So, time to anticipate the next theatrical movie of a cartoon, and...
What could possibly go wrong?
No, you know what? This is the first 2D Western animated film to come into theaters in 7 years. You will not ruin this for me! Also, why is there a Stitch cousin in this?